When Shreya Siddhana Gowda lost her hands after a catastrophic accident, her future looked grim. Some injuries can feel like they're irreversible, especially when amputation is involved, but after an incredibly complex and difficult hand transplant surgery, this lucky young Indian woman's recovery left doctors scratching their heads. In 2016, on her way to college near Mangalore, India, a 19-year-old Shreya Siddhana Gowda got into a severe bus crash. She managed to make it out alive, but her life came at a cost. Shreya managed to pull herself out of the wreckage. She crawled to safety, but onlookers soon realized something was missing. It was her hands, which had been blown off amidst the crash. With such a gruesome injury, some wondered how she would go on. After the crash, Shreya lost the limbs she used most. She was rushed to the hospital and told that she would undergo amputation just above the elbow. The teenager nearly panicked, but knew she had no choice. Luckily, Shreya had prosthetic limbs installed 4 months later. They were meant to emulate having real arms, and Shreya wasn't happy about it. From there, the doctors laid out an alternative plan. Though it would prove far riskier, Shreya could upgrade back to having real arms, which would require a human donation. She would have to wait at first, but something was about to give. What was a tragedy for one family became a blessing for another. In another part of the country, a 20-year-old student named Sachin was declared brain dead after suffering a bad head injury in a motorcycle accident in 2017. Of course, doctors noticed that much of his body remained perfectly intact. The 20-year-old wasn't going to make it. Once Sachin's parents heard of Shreya's condition, and after considering that their son would never have use for them, they agreed to donate his arms to her. Now that Shreya had replaced limbs in store, the next step for her medical team was figuring out how to put them on her body. She wasn't alone, but her doctors weren't exactly confident either. Double hand transplants were extremely rare, and no surgeon had ever attempted one between a man and a woman before. But to get her life back, Shreya was willing to accept the risks. The procedure happened at the Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences. It was led by a senior plastic surgeon called Dr. Subramania Leffler, but he wasn't sure of the result. In addition to the 20 surgeons, 16 anesthesiologists took part in Shreya's surgery. And after 13 hours of hard, strategic work, the operation was finally over. But only careful monitoring and intensive physical therapy would show whether or not it was a success. According to Dr. Subramania, upper arm transplants are much more challenging than those at the wrist or forearm level due to the complexity in accurately identifying and connecting various nerves, muscles, tendons, and arteries. And that wasn't all. Even afterward, rehabilitation is also much more difficult because the patient bears the weight of transplanted hands at the upper arm, said Subramania. In Shreya's case, both transplants were done at the middle of the upper arm. This procedure would inevitably change Shreya's life, but it wasn't always certain that it would be successful. In fact, it was only one of 9 ever attempted in India. With a bright outlook, the student kept track of every small stride. As far as the recovery goes, doctors have said it will happen in parts. First, Shreya will start moving her fingers, then move up to her wrists, shoulders, and elbows. A hopeful estimate from one of Shreya's doctors alleges an 85% recovery of hand function in the next 1.5 years. She might even exceed it. Granted, Shreya did have some reservations about her new arms at first, but because they came from such a different person, the limbs looked a bit strange attached to her body. The hands and forearms were a darker color than Shreya's natural skin tone, plus they were bulkier than her build. Still, the fact that the transplant worked was a medical miracle. The student tried not to focus on the details, though she couldn't ignore a startling change. All on their own, Shreya's arms had begun to change color to match her skin tone. On top of that, they're getting more slender by themselves. With every passing day, Shreya began to feel more like her old self. Her loved ones could hardly believe the transformation. The donor was a tall man with big, spindly fingers, said Miss Siddhana Gowda's mother, Suma. Now, nobody can make out that they're a man's hands. She has even started wearing jewelry and nail varnish. Shreya's future isn't fully clear, but she has a few case studies to look toward for hope. The first child who underwent a similar procedure is now writing, feeding, and dressing himself. And before long, Shreya shared a big achievement of her own. The best moment was when she sent me a handwritten note on my birthday. "I could not have asked for a better birthday gift," said Aya. Shreya thanked her donor's family too, and stressed the importance of this selfless act. She's not alone in proving how organ donation can turn lives around for everyone involved.